The year was 2157. Humanity had spread across dozens of star systems. For almost a century, people lived in peace among the stars. That peace ended when the Kalari Dominion arrived. Lieutenant Olivia Marsh stood at her station on the bridge of the UES Defiant. At 26 years old, she was the youngest tactical officer in the Earth Fleet. Her short brown hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her green eyes focused on the display in front of her. "Status report," Captain Daniel Wright demanded. His voice remained calm, but everyone on the bridge could feel the tension. "5 more Kalari ships just arrived, Captain," Olivia said. "That makes 17 against our 8 vessels." Daniel nodded grimly. The battle for Proxima Centauri was not going well. The human colony on the 4th planet was already lost. Now, they were fighting just to save the remaining ships. "Their weapons are charging again," Olivia warned. "Impact in 40 seconds. The captain pressed a button on his chair. "All hands, brace for impact." The Kalari were unlike any enemy humans had faced before. They weren't made of flesh and blood like people. Their bodies were made of a crystal-like material. They could live for thousands of years. Their ships looked like giant blue crystals that somehow moved through space without any visible engines. The ship shook as enemy fire hit their shields. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge. "Shields down to 28%, reported Chief Engineer Joe Kelly over the comm system. "We can't take another hit like that." Captain Wright looked around at his crew. They had been fighting for 6 hours straight. Everyone was tired. Some were injured. "Options?" Communications Officer Lisa Ward spoke up. "The UES Horizon just reported their engines are dead. They're sitting ducks out there." "Our weapons are barely making a dent in their shields," Olivia added. The captain's face grew dark. "Send the evacuation order. All non-essential personnel to escape pods." "Sir?" Olivia questioned. "We're outmatched, Lieutenant. We need to save who we can." He turned to his first officer. "Will, coordinate the evacuation." Commander Will Barton nodded and began giving orders. Olivia stared at her screen, thinking hard. The Kalari flagship sat at the center of their formation. It was twice the size of the others. If they could somehow damage it, it might give the human ships a chance to escape. "Captain, I have an idea," she said suddenly. Daniel looked at her. "I'm listening." "The quantum warhead in Cargo Bay 3. If I took a fighter and delivered it manually to their flagship, it could disrupt their formation." The bridge went silent. Everyone knew what she was suggesting. The warhead needed to be delivered directly to the target. There would be no coming back. "That's a suicide mission, Marsh," the captain said quietly. Olivia stood straight. "Yes, sir. But it might give everyone else a chance." Daniel stared at her for a long moment. "There has to be another way." "There isn't, sir. We both know that." Her voice was steady. "Let me do this." After what felt like forever, the captain nodded slowly. "Prepare the warhead. And the fastest fighter we have." 30 minutes later, Olivia sat in the cockpit of a small fighter craft. The quantum warhead was secured behind her seat. Her hands moved over the controls, preparing for launch. "Fighter ready for deployment," she reported. "Lieutenant," the captain's voice came through her comm. "You don't have to do this." Olivia smiled slightly. "Someone does, sir. It might as well be me." The launch bay doors opened, revealing the battle raging outside. Destroyed ships drifted among the stars. Weapons fire lit up the darkness. "Good luck, Olivia," Daniel said. For once, he used her first name. "And thank you." The fighter shot out of the Defiant and immediately headed toward the massive Kalari flagship. On her targeting display, Olivia could see the enemy vessels turning to track her. Blue energy beams reached out toward her small craft. She rolled and twisted, avoiding the first few shots. Her fighter was fast and she was one of the best pilots in the fleet. But there were too many enemies. A beam grazed her wing, sending the fighter into a spin. Olivia fought the controls and stabilized just in time to dodge another attack. Inside the Kalari ships, the crystalline beings watched with curiosity. Their telepathic communications buzzed with confusion. Why would a single small craft attack their entire fleet? What was this human trying to accomplish? The fighter took another hit. Warning lights flashed across Olivia's control panel. She gritted her teeth and pushed the engines harder. The massive Kalari flagship grew larger in her viewport. Another hit. The left engine died. Smoke filled the cockpit. Olivia coughed but kept her course steady. She was almost there. "Remember what one human can do," she said, broadcasting on all frequencies so both human and Kalari ships would hear. The fighter was breaking apart around her. Through the smoke and pain, Olivia saw her chance. She aimed directly for a glowing spot on the Kalari flagship, what looked like an energy collection node. She hit the final boost on her engines and activated the quantum warhead's detonation sequence. In her final moments, Olivia felt an odd sensation. Not fear, not pain. It felt like she was being pulled apart and put back together all at once. As her consciousness began to fade, she thought of Earth, of her parents, of everything she was giving her life to protect. Then came the explosion, a brilliant flash of light that temporarily blinded every sensor watching. The fighter disappeared in the blast, which washed harmlessly over the Kalari flagship's shields. On the bridge of the Defiant, Captain Wright watched in silence. The Kalari vessels seemed to pause, as if surprised by the human sacrifice. "She didn't even damage them," Lisa whispered, tears in her eyes. "She gave us a chance," Daniel replied. "All ships retreat to the jump point. Make her sacrifice count." The human fleet began to pull back. Strangely, the Kalari did not immediately pursue. Their ships remained in formation, projecting holographic displays between them. Images of Olivia's fighter being destroyed played over and over. According to the official report filed 3 days later, Lieutenant Olivia Marsh died in action at Proxima Centauri on June 7, 2157. She received the Medal of Honor posthumously. Her parents accepted it at a quiet ceremony on Earth. No one knew then that death was not the end for Olivia Marsh. It was only the beginning. 3 months passed since the Battle of Proxima Centauri. The human forces continued to retreat as the Kalari Dominion pushed closer to Earth. Every week brought news of another lost colony, another defeated fleet. On the Kalari homeworld, deep in the crystal cities that stretched for miles beneath the surface, something strange was happening. Fleet Admiral Zetvek floated in his resonance chamber, his crystalline body absorbing energy from the glowing walls. As the most senior military commander of the Dominion, he had led the conquest of 17 different species. Humans were just the latest. A junior officer entered the chamber, its crystal body flickering with blue light, a sign of distress in Kalari communication. "Speak," Zetvek ordered. "Admiral, the communications grid is experiencing problems again," the officer reported. "Random signals are appearing across our networks." "Have the engineers found the source?" "No, Admiral, but there is something new." The officer projected a holographic display from its center. These symbols appeared on the command ship's main computer. Zetvek examined the hologram. The symbols were unfamiliar to him, just lines and curves arranged in patterns. "What are they?" he asked. "Human letters, Admiral. They form words in the human language called English." Zetvek moved closer. "What do they say?" "According to our translation matrix, remember what one human can do." The Admiral's body briefly flashed red with anger. "Those were the last words of the human who attacked our flagship at Proxima Centauri." "Yes, Admiral. The same message has appeared on 17 different ships in the past week." Zetvek dismissed the officer and returned to his thoughts. The Kalari had encountered many species in their long history. All of them had fallen. Humans were physically weak, their technology primitive compared to Kalari designs. Yet they fought with unexpected determination. Perhaps, he thought, we should study them more before we destroy them completely. Across the galaxy, aboard the human vessel UES Valiant, Communications Officer Gary Peterson sat at his station. The ship was hiding in a debris field near the edge of human space. Like all surviving human ships, they were trying to stay undetected while gathering intelligence. On Kalari movements, Gary adjusted his headset and frowned. For the third time that day, he was picking up a strange signal. It was very weak and used an old encryption pattern that hadn't been used by Earth forces in years. He called over his shoulder. "Captain Bennett, I'm getting that signal again." Captain Laura Bennett walked over to his station. She was in her 40s with lines of worry etched into her face after months of running from the Kalari. "Still think it's coming from Kalari space?" she asked. Gary nodded. "Yes, ma'am, but that doesn't make sense. This is definitely a human signal pattern." "Could be a trap," Laura suggested. "The Kalari might have captured our communication protocols from destroyed ships." "Maybe," Gary said slowly, "but there's something familiar about it. I've been trying to figure out why." He worked for another hour, tracking the signal as it bounced between different points in space. Finally, he gasped. "Captain, I know what this is," he called out. "It's Lieutenant Marsh's personal signature." Laura frowned. "Olivia Marsh? From the Defiant?" "Yes, ma'am. Every communications officer has a unique way of modulating their signals. It's not official, but we all do it. This is definitely Olivia's pattern." "That's impossible, Gary. She died at Proxima Centauri. We all saw the recordings." Gary nodded. "I know, but this is her signature. I'm sure of it." Laura put her hand on his shoulder. "You were friends, weren't you?" "We went through training together. I know her work." He looked up at the captain with determination. "Let me try to decode it, please." After a moment, Laura nodded. "Do it, but don't get your hopes up." Gary worked through his entire shift and well into the next one. The signal was fragmentary, breaking up as it traveled through space. But slowly, he pieced it together. When he finally broke the encryption, he stood up so quickly his chair fell over. "Captain, you need to see this." Laura hurried over. On Gary's screen were 4 simple words. "Not dead, coming home." "This can't be real," Laura whispered. "The signal is being relayed through the Kalari fleet," Gary explained. "It's like it's bouncing from ship to ship, getting stronger each time, almost like it's growing." Laura stared at the message. If there's even the smallest chance, she made her decision. "Send a message to Fleet Command. Priority 1 encryption. We need to report this." 2 weeks later, a small human scout ship called the UES Hawk approached the site of the Proxima Centauri battle. Admiral Samantha Miller had authorized the mission after receiving Captain Bennett's report. She didn't believe that Olivia Marsh could still be alive, but the signal was real and needed investigation. The Hawk's sensors detected something unusual, an energy pattern unlike anything they had seen before. It wasn't Kalari technology, nor was it human. It existed at the quantum level, shifting and changing as they watched. "What is that?" asked the pilot, Lieutenant Eric Davis. Science Officer Zoe Quinn shook her head. "I don't know, but it's responding to our communication frequencies. When we transmit, it pulses." "Try sending Lieutenant Marsh's name," suggested the captain. "A veteran named Paul Washington." Zoe typed the name into the communication system and transmitted it toward the anomaly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the energy pattern expanded dramatically, forming a swirling vortex of light. "Should we retreat?" Eric asked nervously. "Hold position," Paul ordered. "Keep sensors at maximum." The vortex continued to grow until it was larger than their ship. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it collapsed in on itself and vanished. In its place floated a small object. "Is that a data chip?" Zoe asked, squinting at the screen. "Bring it aboard," the captain ordered. "Full quarantine protocols." An hour later, the chip sat in a sealed container in the ship's lab. Zoe had confirmed it was of human manufacture, a standard neural recording device used by Earth's military to store the personality imprints of important officers. A backup, in case they needed to be cloned. "It's definitely Lieutenant Marsh's imprint," Zoe confirmed. "But the data has been changed somehow. There are patterns here I've never seen before." "Is it dangerous?" Paul asked. "I don't think so, but it's not just a normal backup. If I had to guess, I'd say her consciousness somehow survived the explosion and evolved. The captain looked troubled. We need to get this back to Earth immediately. As the Hawk turned and prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, none of the crew noticed the faint energy tendrils that extended from the chip, slipping into the ship's computer systems, nor did they hear the whisper that echoed through the digital pathways. Remember what one human can do. On the other side of the galaxy, in the heart of Kalari territory, alarms began to sound across their fleet. Ship after ship reported system failures. Navigation controls reset themselves. Weapons powered down without commands. And on every screen, a message appeared in human letters. I'm coming back. 6 months after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, chaos erupted across the Kalari fleet. On the massive flagship, Supreme Commander Cuzvolt watched in horror as every system on his ship failed at once. The lights dimmed, then came back online, with a strange blue glow. Weapons powered down. Navigation controls reset themselves. What is happening? He demanded of his officers. None had answers. The main view screen flickered, and then displayed something that made the crystalline beings vibrate with fear. A human face. A female with short brown hair and green eyes. Lieutenant Olivia Marsh. I told you to remember, her voice echoed through the ship. Now I'll show you. At that exact moment, on the outer edge of human space, a patrol ship called the UES Falcon detected an unknown vessel approaching at high speed. Captain Nicole White ordered battle stations immediately. After months of defeats, every human ship was ready to fight at a moment's notice. Target locked, reported Weapons Officer Ben Jordan. Wait, it's sending a human identification code. Nicole frowned. What code? This can't be right. Ben looked up in shock. It's Lieutenant Olivia Marsh's personal code. That's impossible, Nicole said. But she hesitated before giving the order to fire. Scan the ship. It appears to be a modified Kalari shuttle, reported Science Officer Henry West. But its power signature is unlike anything I've seen before. It's a mix of Kalari and human technology. The communication system crackled to life. UES Falcon, this is Lieutenant Olivia Marsh, requesting permission to dock. The bridge crew froze. They all knew the story of the pilot who had sacrificed herself at Proxima Centauri. This has to be a trap, Ben whispered. Nicole made her decision. Maintain weapons lock. Open a channel. She took a deep breath. This is Captain White. Identify yourself correctly or we will open fire. There was a pause before the reply came. Captain, I know how this sounds. 6 months ago I died at Proxima Centauri, or at least, that's what everyone thinks. I need to speak with Fleet Command immediately. Earth is in danger. Nicole nodded to her communications officer. Send a message to headquarters. Priority 1. 2 hours later, the shuttle was brought into the Falcon's landing bay under heavy guard. Marines surrounded the ship, weapons ready. When the door finally opened, gasps echoed through the bay. Olivia Marsh walked out. She wore a standard Earth uniform, but something was different about her. Her eyes had faint blue circuit-like patterns running through them. When she moved, it was with an unusual fluid grace. I need to speak with Admiral Miller immediately, she said. Hold position, ordered the Marine sergeant. How do we know you're really Olivia Marsh? Olivia smiled slightly. When I was at the academy, I once reprogrammed the simulation computer to make all the enemy ships look like rubber ducks. Admiral Miller was not amused. She paused. That's not in any official record. You can verify it with her. The sergeant looked uncertain but kept his weapon trained on her. You'll be escorted to the medical bay first. Standard procedure. Medical scans revealed something impossible. Her body was human, but interlaced with quantum-level technology, unlike anything Earth's doctors had seen before. Her brain activity was off the charts, showing patterns that shouldn't be possible for a human mind. When Admiral Samantha Miller arrived 8 hours later, she found Olivia sitting calmly in a secure room, The admiral was a tall woman in her 60s with gray hair and the stern face of someone who had seen too much war. "They tell me you're Lieutenant Marsh," she said, sitting down across from Olivia. "I am, Admiral, though I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago." "Explain." Olivia leaned forward. "When my fighter exploded against the Kalari flagship, something unexpected happened. The quantum warhead created a momentary breach in their shields. My consciousness, my mind, was fragmented and drawn into their computer systems through that breach." The Admiral's expression didn't change. "That's impossible." "For a normal human, yes, but in my final moments something changed in me." Olivia tapped her temple. "The Kalari don't understand humans. They don't understand our persistence, our will to survive. When parts of my consciousness entered their system, I refused to fade away. Instead, I spread, like a virus." "A ghost in their machine," Miller said softly. Olivia nodded. "For months, I've been learning their systems from the inside, exploring their network. They never detected me because they never thought to look for me. In their arrogance, they believed no organic mind could survive in their digital realm. If what you're saying is true, how are you here now? In a physical body?" "I found their technology for creating bodies. They're not truly crystalline beings. That's just the form they prefer. They can create physical vessels for their consciousness." Olivia gestured to herself. "I rebuilt my body cell by cell using their technology, but I'm not exactly human anymore." To demonstrate, Olivia held out her hand. The skin seemed to shimmer, revealing a network of tiny circuit-like patterns underneath before returning to normal. "The Kalari are in complete disarray right now," she continued. "I've disrupted their entire fleet. Ships are shutting down. Navigation systems are failing. They don't understand what's happening." "And you caused this?" Miller asked skeptically. "I left parts of myself behind in their network. Think of it as sleeper agents, programs that activate on my command." Olivia leaned closer. "Admiral, I've brought everything we need to win this war. Their tactical data, defensive codes, system vulnerabilities, everything." Miller studied her for a long moment. "How do I know this isn't some elaborate Kalari trap? How do I know you're really Olivia Marsh? Ask me anything from my past, my personal file, my academy records. The Kalari could have extracted that information from our databases." Olivia thought for a moment, then smiled. "When I was 12, you came to my parents' home for dinner. My father burned the roast. You brought ice cream for dessert. Mint. Chocolate chip. You told me stories about your first command. That's when I decided to join the fleet." Miller's stern expression softened slightly. "Olivia always said that was why she enlisted. Because you showed me that being strong didn't mean being cold. That command was about caring for your people, not just giving orders." Olivia's voice cracked slightly. "I'm still me, Admiral, just more than I was before." For the first time, Miller looked convinced. "If you really have all this Kalari data, why come back in person? Why not just transmit it?" "Because the data alone isn't enough. I understand their technology now. I know how they think, how they fight, and I know they have a critical weakness we can exploit." Olivia's eyes flashed with their strange blue patterns. "But more importantly, I came back because Earth is my home, and I will not let it fall." Miller nodded slowly. "What do you need?" "A ship, a crew willing to trust me, and permission to take the fight back to the Kalari. Even if I believe everything you've said, the Joint Chiefs will take convincing." Olivia smiled. "Then it's a good thing I have proof." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. "This contains the exact location and defensive specifications of the Kalari homeworld, something they've kept hidden from every species they've conquered." Miller took the device carefully. "How did you get this?" "I told you, Admiral. They never thought to look for me in their own systems." Olivia's expression hardened. "They witnessed me die in battle. Now I'm back, and it's their turn to run." 2 weeks after Olivia's return, the tide of war began to change. The Joint Chiefs had been skeptical at first. Some military leaders thought she was a Kalari spy or a clone programmed to infiltrate Earth's defenses, but the information she provided proved too valuable to ignore. Captain Steve Morgan of the UES Valiant watched as Olivia briefed the strike team. They were preparing for an attack on a major Kalari base near the Tau Ceti system. Steve had been given command of this mission, but everyone knew who was really in charge. The Kalari have 7 ships guarding the base, Olivia explained, pointing to the holographic display. Their shields operate on a rotating frequency. Normal weapons can't penetrate them. Then how do we attack? Asked Lieutenant Ryan Adams, the weapons officer. Olivia smiled. We don't need to penetrate their shields, we just need to sync with them. She pulled out a small device. This transmitter will send a pulse that matches their shield frequency perfectly. When activated, it will create a feedback loop in their defense systems. What happens then? Steve asked. Their shields will collapse, Olivia said, but more importantly, the pulse will temporarily disrupt their neural network. It won't kill them, but it will leave them unconscious for about 20 minutes. The briefing continued as Olivia detailed every aspect of the plan. Steve noticed how different she was now. She spoke with absolute confidence. Her eyes occasionally showed those strange blue circuit patterns when she got excited. Sometimes she would pause in the middle of a sentence, as if listening to something no one else could hear. Not everyone trusted her. Commander Jack Wilson, Steve's second-in-command, voiced his concerns after the briefing. This is a mistake, Captain, Jack said. We're putting our entire strategy in the hands of someone who, by her own admission, isn't fully human anymore. Her intelligence has checked out so far, Steve replied. Every bit of Kalari data she's given us has been accurate. That's what worries me, Jack muttered. No one should know this much about the enemy. It's not natural. Steve understood the concern. But after months of losing, he was ready to try anything. Natural or not, she's giving us a chance to win. That's good enough for me. The next day, a fleet of 5 human ships approached the Kalari base. They moved slowly, staying just out of weapons range. The Kalari vessels formed a defensive pattern, their crystalline structures glinting in the light of Tau Ceti's sun. On the bridge of the Valiant, Olivia stood next to Captain Morgan. They're communicating with each other, she said. They're confused by our approach. They think it's a suicide mission. Steve looked at her. How do you know that? I can still sense their network, she explained. Not clearly, but enough to get impressions. That's unsettling, Jack muttered from his station. Prepare the transmitter, Steve ordered, ignoring the comment. All ships, battle positions. The human vessels spread out, each taking position around the Kalari formation. On the enemy flagship, Supreme Commander Kasvolt watched with growing concern. Since the strange events 6 months ago, the Kalari had suffered a series of unexplainable system failures. Now these human ships were behaving oddly, not attacking or retreating, just holding position. Something is wrong, he communicated to his officers. Prepare to... His thought was cut short as Olivia activated the transmitter. A pulse of energy shot out from the Valiant, invisible to normal sensors but perfectly matched to the Kalari shield frequency. The pulse hit the nearest enemy ship and then bounced to the next, creating a cascade effect through their formation. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the blue glow of the Kalari shields flickered and died. The crystalline ships drifted aimlessly in space. It worked, Steve whispered. All Kalari ships have lost power. No signs of resistance. Boarding teams, move in, Olivia ordered, then glanced at Steve. Sorry, Captain. Your call. He nodded. Boarding teams, move in. Remember, we want prisoners, not casualties. Shuttles launched from the human ships, carrying Marines in spacesuits. They entered the Kalari vessels without resistance. Inside, they found the crystalline aliens motionless, their bodies dim and unresponsive. They're in a state similar to unconsciousness, Olivia explained, watching the helmet camera feeds. They'll recover, but not for a while. Within an hour, the human forces had secured the entire Kalari base. It was the first major victory against the alien invaders since the war began. As news spread through the fleet, Morale soared. Suddenly, the seemingly unstoppable enemy didn't look so invincible. Admiral Miller arrived the next day to oversee the operation. The Kalari prisoners were being held in special containment fields designed according to Olivia's specifications. The Admiral found Olivia studying the aliens through an observation window. "Impressive work, Lieutenant," Miller said, "though I'm not sure that rank still applies to you." Olivia smiled slightly. "I'm not sure what I am anymore, Admiral. Not fully human. Not Kalari. Something in between." Miller studied her carefully. "The Joint Chiefs are concerned about your connection to the Kalari systems. Some worry you might be influenced by them." "I understand their concern," Olivia replied, "but it's the other way around. I influence their systems, not the reverse." She turned to face the Admiral. "I can prove it. The Kalari are planning a major assault on Earth in 3 weeks. Their entire fleet will jump into the solar system at once, overwhelming our defenses with sheer numbers." Miller's eyes widened. "How do you know this?" "I still have echoes of myself in their network, fragments of my consciousness that send me information." Olivia tapped her temple. "Not clearly, but enough to give us warning. Can we stop them?" Olivia nodded. "With what we learned here, yes, but we need to work quickly." She hesitated. "There's something else you should know. The Kalari aren't acting alone. They're being pushed by something else, something they fear even more than us." "What do you mean?" Miller asked, suddenly alarmed. "There's another species involved, one that stays hidden. The Kalari call them the Directors. They're the real enemy." Olivia's eyes flashed with their blue patterns. "But to fight them, we need to end this war with the Kalari first." "How do we do that?" "We need to show them something they've never seen before," Olivia said. "Mercy." Miller looked confused. "Mercy? After everything they've done?" "The Kalari don't understand the concept. In their society, defeat means extinction, always. That's why they fight so hard, why they never surrender." Olivia gestured to the prisoners. "But if we show them there's another way, it will break their entire worldview. You think we can end this war without destroying them?" "I think we can turn them from enemies into allies." Olivia's expression hardened. "Because we'll need all the allies we can get for what's coming next." As they talked, one of the Kalari prisoners began to stir, its crystalline form glowing faintly as consciousness returned. It saw Olivia through the window and froze, vibrating in what could only be described as fear. "They recognize you," Miller observed. "Yes," Olivia said quietly. "In their culture, I'm something impossible. A soul that refused to die. A human who conquered death itself." She smiled grimly. "And now they're beginning to run." 1 year after Olivia's return, representatives from the Kalari Dominion stood in the Grand Hall of Earth's United Government Building. The massive crystalline beings towered over the humans, their bodies glowing with a soft blue light. Despite their impressive size, they seemed nervous, their forms vibrating slightly whenever Olivia Marsh entered the room. Admiral Miller watched as Olivia approached the Kalari delegation. In the past year, humanity had gone from the brink of extinction to forcing the most powerful empire in known space to the negotiating table. It was a miracle, or perhaps just the power of one extraordinary human. "The terms are fair," Olivia said to the lead Kalari representative, High Commander Zervak. "You withdraw to your home systems. You dismantle your conquest fleets. In return, we share technology and establish trade." The crystalline being vibrated in what humans now recognized as discomfort. "Your terms include mercy. This is difficult for us to understand." "Yet you must understand it," Olivia replied, "or there can be no peace." The signing ceremony was broadcast throughout human space. Billions watched as the Kalari, who had nearly wiped out humanity, agreed to peace terms that were surprisingly generous. Many humans were angry, wanting revenge for destroyed colonies and billions of deaths, but most were simply relieved the war was over. After the ceremony, Admiral Miller found Olivia standing alone on a balcony, looking up at the stars. "You did it," Miller said. You ended the war. Olivia smiled slightly. We ended it. I just showed the way. The Kalari wouldn't even look at you during the ceremony. They seemed terrified of you. In their culture, I am something impossible, Olivia explained. When a Kalari dies, their consciousness is collected by their leaders. It's their form of afterlife. But I escaped that fate. I returned from death on my own terms. To them, I am like a ghost that cannot be controlled. Miller nodded. What will you do now? The Joint Chiefs have offered you any position you want. Your own command, research division, whatever you choose. Olivia was quiet for a moment. I'm not sure I belong anywhere anymore, Admiral. I'm not the same person I was before Proxima Centauri. Sometimes I feel disconnected from humanity. Is it true what some people say? That parts of you still exist in the Kalari network? Yes. Fragments of my consciousness continue to exist there. I can feel them like distant memories or dreams. Olivia's eyes showed their now familiar blue circuits. And sometimes I sense other things. The directors are still out there, watching, waiting. Do you think they'll come for us now? Eventually. The Kalari were just their tools. Now that we've shown we can defeat the Kalari, the directors will see us as a threat. Olivia looked back at the stars. We need to be ready when they come. 6 months later, Olivia sat in the captain's chair of the UES Defiance, a new ship built using a combination of human and Kalari technology. Her crew was unusual, mostly humans, but also a few Kalari who had chosen to ally with Earth. Captain Rebecca Allen, her first officer, approached with a report. The colony on Tau Ceti is fully established, Rebecca said, and the Kalari delegation has arrived to begin the cultural exchange program. Olivia nodded. Good. The sooner we understand each other, the better our alliance will be. Rebecca hesitated before asking the question that had been on her mind for months. Olivia, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Are you still human? I mean, after everything that happened to you. Olivia considered this carefully. I think humanity isn't defined by our biology or even our minds. It's defined by our choices. She looked around the bridge at her crew. I chose to sacrifice myself to save others. That was human. I chose mercy over vengeance when we defeated the Kalari. That was human too. Rebecca nodded but still looked uncertain. Does it bother you? Olivia asked. Working with someone who's different? No, Rebecca answered honestly. It's just hard to understand what you experienced. Death and rebirth. Existing as pure consciousness in an alien network. Becoming something new. I don't fully understand it myself, Olivia admitted. But I'm still me. Just more than I was before. Their conversation was interrupted by an alert from the communications officer. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from deep space. It's unlike anything we've seen before. Olivia moved quickly to the communications station. The officer displayed a signal pattern that pulsed with strange energy. Is it Kalari? Rebecca asked. No, Olivia said, her voice suddenly tense. It's them, the directors. The signal grew stronger, forming patterns that somehow hurt to look. Olivia placed her hand on the console and her eyes blazed with blue light. The ship's systems responded to her in ways that shouldn't have been possible, interfaces changing and adapting. What are you doing? Rebecca asked. Communicating back, Olivia explained. They're trying to probe our defenses, test our technology. They think we're just another species they can manipulate or destroy. What are you telling them? Olivia smiled grimly. I'm showing them what happened to the Kalari. I'm showing them that humans don't stay dead, that we don't accept defeat. The blue patterns in her eyes glowed brighter. I'm telling them that if they come for us, they'll face something they've never encountered before. The signal suddenly cut off. The bridge was silent for a moment. Did it work? Rebecca asked. For now, Olivia said. They're surprised. Maybe even afraid. They've conquered many species across countless worlds, but they've never met humans before. She returned to her captain's chair. They've never met someone who died and came back stronger. In the weeks that followed, Olivia briefed Earth's leaders about the directors. A new defense network was established. Ships were built. Alliances were formed with other species, including the now peaceful Kalari. Throughout the galaxy, the story of Olivia Marsh spread. On 1,000 worlds and 100 languages, people told the tale of the human who conquered death, who turned defeat into victory through sheer force of will. They called her by many names: the returned, the awakened one, the human who would not die. But the story always ended the same way. They witnessed the human girl die in battle. Now she's back, and those who would threaten humanity are running. As Olivia stood on the bridge of her ship, looking out at the stars, she knew the real battle was still to come. But for the first time, she didn't feel alone. Part of her existed in the Kalari network. Part existed in human space. And all of her was ready to defend her people against whatever came next. "Set course for the outer colonies," she ordered. "We have work to do." As the Defiance jumped to faster-than-light speed, Olivia Marsh smiled. Death had not been the end of her story. It had only been the beginning.